Thank you for watching this video, and please hit that like and subscribe button. Welcome to another useful video. Today we're going to be taking a look at a super interesting smartwatch, the Kospet Hope 4G. This smartwatch promises to deliver a big impact with 3 gigs of RAM and 32 gigabytes of storage, along with a MediaTek MTK6739 quad-core processor. So, the question remains, does this watch live up to the hype? Let's take an in-depth look and find out. The product specifications for this item are certainly impressive. In addition to the 3 gigs of RAM and 32 gigabytes of memory, it's got a 1.39-inch AMOLED display, Android 7.1.1, a 620 mAh battery, IP67 water resistance, and a whole host of connectivity options, including 4G LTE, which we will cover a little bit later on in this review. First impressions of this watch are favorable. The watch does seem to be made of high quality materials, and the ceramic bezel is definitely a nice touch. On the right side of the watch, you'll notice that the top button is the power button. In the middle, you have a 5 megapixel camera that's extrapolated to 8 megapixels via software, and the bottom button is the back button. The feeling of quality is also apparent when you look at the back of the watch. There's the speaker, the heart rate sensor, the SIM cover, and the 2-prong charging port, which uses a magnetic adapter. The straps on this watch are also removable, which is a big bonus because the non-removable straps on other watches are very tough to work with, and if they break, in my opinion, the watch is done for. So this is another great bonus of the Kospet Hope 4G watch. So let's move on to the fun part, actually using the watch. This is the first startup of the watch when it's right out of the box. It does have that mock screen protector covering the AMOLED screen. However, I don't believe there's actually a plastic screen protector underneath there, but the item does come with a screen protector for the watch. And as it starts up, you can see that it's an Android watch running Android 7.1.1. And during the initial startup, it'll start by asking you what language you want the phone to display. And another really nice thing about the Kospet watch is that it has so many different languages that it's compatible with. So in my opinion, it's truly a world watch, and you can take this watch to almost any country and it'll probably have the language that's frequently spoken in that area. So we'll just scroll through the different languages that it's compatible with so that you can take a look and see if your language is represented. Once the watch is all set up, this is the default Kospet dial that you're going to see, and swiping to the left is going to bring out the app drawer for Android 7.1.1. This is the default app drawer that you're going to see on a lot of smartwatches that run the Android 7.1.1 setup. It looks good, it's functional, and you can also make it into an arc so that all the apps are surrounded by a mini clock face. Moving forward, you can use this watch to make phone calls, send and receive texts, and even browse the web if you insert in a compatible SIM card. It also has all of your contacts, which I've backed up through my Google account onto the watch, and that's worked great as well. Next, we're going to move on to the settings, and the smartwatch does have a lot of different settings. So you can adjust the sound, the media volume, the alarm volume, and the ring volume. And it does also have a vibration feature for calls or receiving notifications, which does come in handy as well. The smartwatch also does have a silent mode that actually makes all of the notifications and alerts silent for you. Moving on to the display, you have your normal adjustment of the brightness level. I do like the brightness level adjuster on this settings menu. It does work pretty well. And on the lowest brightness level, you can barely see the screen. So if you're okay with that, you can leave your brightness really low and go ahead and really get extended battery life. And there's an example of the always on time. display mode. I don't really like using it because I don't constantly look at my watch, and I feel like that's gonna go ahead and burn some extra battery. This is the different type of app drawer that you can have where everything's around a miniature clock. So it just depends on what you like using for that. And that's again the app list style there. Now you can go into Connect and you can figure out your Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, even as a Wi-Fi hotspot, your GPS, your cellular networks, etc., etc. There's some different options for the gestures that you can do with the smartwatch. And the battery, you have the intelligent power, and it also has the standard battery information, which lets you know what's been taking more power out of your smartwatch and what you can do to really reduce your battery usage to get the maximum screen on time with the device. Again, language is an input. We've gone over the languages that it has. It does have different inputs that you can do as well. The date and time, right there. You can reset the watch if you'd like, uninstall applications. If you hit more, it goes into the different parameters that the watch has. It's got 3 gigs of RAM, so you can see we have a lot of free RAM that we haven't used there, which is wonderful. Again, the storage is 32 gigs, so you have a lot of different storage space for your different apps or games or whatever else you might want to download onto the watch, including movies and pictures. There's the status of different information that you can get about the watch, such as the build number, the kernel version, etc. My watch was already fully updated when I received it in the mail. It didn't have any updates that I needed to install, which was great. I purchased the watch with my own money, and this is a review that I'm doing just because I'm really interested in the product and I want to have a good review out there for anybody else that's looking to purchase a similar watch like this. The heart rate monitor, which is next, works really well. It does take a little bit of time to get your heart rate, and then once it does get your heart rate, it kind of adjusts. Sometimes it starts really low, sometimes it starts really high, but eventually it does adjust to the correct level once it's on your wrist for a little bit of time and it's had the opportunity to really dial in on your exact heart rate. But it's nice to have, and it does work pretty well. Next up is fitness, and that allows you to track your runs, your bike rides, your indoor runs, etc. And so it'll give you your heart rate, your amount of steps, and how far you've gone. And before purchasing this item, I read online that it does use a GPS lock to get a more accurate reading of that information. However, with my watch, it doesn't actually get a GPS lock at all, so it's not super accurate. However, I've downloaded a different app to circumvent that, and it's another app that I can highly recommend for you if you'd like to know more about it. It does show you a good picture of the weather settings for you. It has the temperature in Celsius and Fahrenheit, and it does a pretty good job. And the gallery is right there. The nice thing about the gallery or this watch is that it does have pinch to zoom, so it's not just a single touch, it's a multi-touch screen, which is really wonderful. So it's good if you want to zoom in on things, or if you're playing games and you need two, different fingers to use while playing the game. It's great. There's the Play Store, which is the Google Play Store, and it works wonderfully. It's your, the Play Store. So it's a great thing to have. There's a lot of different apps that you can get there. And because it's not Wear OS, but it's Android 7.1.1, the apps aren't specific for Wear. Next up is the browser, which I'm not a huge fan of. I've been using Google Chrome for the longest time, so I just stopped using the browser and installed Google Chrome, and it's been working great for me. There's the calculator, which works great, your downloads, your calendar, your clock with the alarm and different things, your assistant, the Google Maps. Google Maps works good. I would say the GPS lock kind of takes a long time if you're indoors, but once you're outdoors, it's really great. It picks it up pretty quickly, and it's accurate, and it does work well. So if you need to use your watch for directions or anything else, it's wonderful, works great. There you can see me swiping across the different menu options that we have. That's the cleaner, which I'm not exactly sure what it does. These are your quick settings in Android 7.1.1, and there you can see that it's connected to my phone via Bluetooth, but I haven't inserted a SIM card in there yet. That's the amount of steps that you've taken, and when you go that way, it shows your notifications. So overall, this is a quick overview of how the watch works and how the menu is set up. I hope it gives you a better understanding of how everything is set up within the watch. One thing I was surprised with is the different amount of dials that are available for the watch. If you have the wiiwatch 2 app or just through the smartwatch itself, you can go ahead and download different types of watch faces. The smartwatch comes with a lot of Kospet specific watch faces that are installed from when you open the box and turn on the watch, but I've downloaded some really cool smartwatch faces that look great and function great, and the store, quote unquote, that they have for the dials is pretty large, so there's a really good selection of different dials out there. So you can definitely find things that have more information or less information or look classical or really futuristic. They have a really good selection, and I was surprised by that. I do like the dials or watch faces that show more information, like your battery level or the weather or the date. That's usually more of my style, so I kind of like this one a lot, and other ones out there that give you a little bit more information. Since it is a smartwatch though, and you get tired of something, you can quickly change it and get a new dial, and the dials switch really quickly. I haven't had any issues with them malfunctioning or not working right, and it's just really wonderful to be able to have such a large selection of dial faces within the wiiwatch app or the smartwatch itself when you go to the end of the screen to download them. I love having a nice camera on my device to be able to capture those moments, whether I'm looking to take a photo or a video. So you guys might be wondering, how does the camera on the Kospet Hope 4G compare to like a regular cell phone camera? Can you only have the Kospet on your wrist and forget having a cell phone to take those pictures and movies that you always want to take? Well, that's a good question. Now, I've done the due diligence, and coming up, you're going to see some pictures and a video that I took solely using the Kospet 4G. At the end of the video, there's going to be 2 side-by-side pictures. Now, these are pictures that I've edited after taking the photo using the Kospet Hope 4G. I've edited them to make them look nicer, albeit a little bit more high contrast, but tell me what you think. Because in my opinion, the pictures are pretty washed out in terms of color. So here are the pictures that I've edited, and remember guys, the camera is a single fixed focused lens. It doesn't have any type of zoom or adjustment. Now coming up is a sound clip from YouTube. So as you can tell, the speaker quality is actually pretty decent. It's definitely loud enough. It's not extremely loud, but it's loud enough. People hear you very well when you're making a phone call, and it does have volume adjustment, so you can adjust the volume, but overall the sound is pretty decent for such a small device. I was pleasantly surprised by it. It's not going to have an extreme amount of bass, and it's not going to be a perfect sounding speaker, but it definitely gets loud enough for you to do your daily business on it. As you can see in the following picture, when I inserted a 4G SIM card, I got 4G signal perfectly fine inside the home, and I did a test with fast.com and I got 2.8 megabits of speed, which is pretty great. And like I was saying before, call quality is wonderful, the speaker is loud enough, and the microphone works well so everybody can hear you and have a good conversation with you. Now, moving on to the battery life. How's the battery life? Well, this video will show you kind of like what takes the most amount of battery from this device. So you can see in this one, in just 3 hours, I've already used around 30% of the battery. So that should be able to give you a little bit of an idea on how long the battery will last for you. Now this is another example. Now this battery was from 10 hours ago, and I used the smartwatch really a lot, and it still had 13%. So if you're not a super duper heavy user with the battery, you can make the battery stretch to a full day. However, I hate being around 10% battery. It's not comfortable for me. I like having at least 20% or more to know if I needed the watch in an emergency, it would be there for me. So that's something to think about. The quality of the screen is great, and this is at full brightness during the day. You can see that it's actually very bright, very clear, and easy to see. It's actually a little bit too bright for me, so I don't even use the watch at more than half brightness because it does get very, very bright. Now, this is on half brightness, which I feel is perfect for me during the day. It looks a little bit dimmer here than in real life, but the screen works great. You can easily see it, and it saves battery going half. So guys, you might be wondering, what's my verdict on the Kospet Hope 4G? Well, I really like this device, and I think it's worth the money, and I think in terms of smartwatches running Android 7.1.1, it's probably the best option out there. However, having said that, there are some issues that I have with the Kospet Hope 4G. The first issue that I have is the fact that the screen is round and it's not super large. So some apps, you can't navigate through the app and make it work correctly because the screen isn't big enough. And I've tried putting it in square mode or round mode, and that hasn't worked for me. So if someone has a fix for that for me, please let me know. If it's an app I can download so that I can scroll the pages easier, that would be lovely, because right now I feel like that is a limitation for the watch, because it's really hard to use some apps because I have to keep switching between circle mode and square mode every time I want to type something or look at something or hit accept for something. So that's been a challenge. The second challenge is the battery, which really isn't that bad unless you're a power user. And I feel like I'm a power user, and for me, I like having a battery that I can rely on. I can charge it in the morning and I can be good until late at night. And having said that, if you're not a big heavy user of the watch, that probably will be okay for you. However, for me and the way I use it, I'd probably need to charge it once at like 5 or 6 p.m. and then it would last the full day for me. So if I got home from work at like 5 p.m., I could charge it, and then I would know that if I wanted to use it at like until like 10 p.m., it'll be just fine and it'll get me through that time frame. So if that's an option for you, or if you can charge it during work or when you're at home and things like that, that's great. And so that's another limitation of it. The third limitation is the fact that I don't really know how reliable this brand or this watch is. Like, will it still work just as good as it does now in a year? I think that's a big question mark. I'm going to try to keep it that long and figure out if it does really work that well for that long. The really surprising thing was how well the phone takes and makes calls. The signal strength for the 4G, at least for me in Southern California, is very strong. The speaker is good. I would say the camera is pretty much a weak point, because even for being like a camera that has like 8 megapixels supposedly, even though it's a 5 megapixel, it's not the best camera. It really doesn't live up to being a camera that can replace your regular smartphone camera unless you're really heavy into editing photos, and then it makes it really contrasty and really makes the image way more vibrant than it should be. And so that's something that however, that doesn't mean that it would be a good option for you. For example, the watch does not have an NFC chip, meaning that you can't use Google Pay with it, and a lot of the other benefits that NFC does provide. So the watch does have some limitations, but the strengths outweigh the limitations, especially because the watch has enough memory to be able to download the apps and actually use them because of the good amount of RAM and memory that they've built into the watch. So really, the operation of it has been pretty smooth. I have had to reset it a couple of times, but overall, so far with my use, I've been really happy with this Kospet watch. I've loved using it. Everybody's been asking me about it, and really, it's been great overall. So I want to thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope I answered all of your questions that you might have on this watch. And if you could leave me a like and subscribe to my channel, that would mean the world to me. Thank you for watching and have a great day.